All right.
Hey.
All right, everybody in? Okay, welcome. We have an exciting discussion panel for you talking about the, are we going to keep fading in and out? Okay, so we're going to be talking about the future of cybersecurity. Our future in cybersecurity is usually, we're used to the new and exciting coming our way and how and the challenges that arise to figure out what we're going to do to secure this new brand new technology that, you know, the engineers and scientists keep pumping out to the world so that we can feed our techno-lust or our desire to do things easier and have, you know, all these awesome things that are coming our way. And we have with us visionaries and leaders from across the space with, I would say, at least a century of communicative experience between some of these panel members here. So a wealth of experience, a lot of people who have changed the way we think about things and challenged the way we do things on this panel. So super excited about this, and I will let everyone introduce themselves. So we will start at the very end with Winn Schwartau.
I'm Winn.
I'm Rob Labbe. Thank you. I am the CISO in residence and CEO of the Mining and Metals ISAC. Before that, CISO of a global mining company for 10 years, and then a bunch of stuff at Microsoft and all kinds of other places before that.
And I am Mark Rorabaugh. I'm President and CEO of InfraShield. We kind of specialize in protecting critical infrastructure, so all kinds of things, especially where cyber meets physical.
Those are the shortest ego trips I've seen in a long time on a panel.
We can keep going.
That might have been a short ego trip, but there's no shortage of egos here.
Correct.
So let's get straight to it, and then we're going to open up the audience so you guys have some questions ready for these gentlemen here. I'm sure they'd be willing to answer them. First question, and we're going to start with Mark here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. What new developments or technology are you most excited about?
The same thing that is going to make us shout out doomed. I know there is a lot of over talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but one of the things that has been an advantage is it's been taking out a lot of the mundane tasks that we all do when it comes to cybersecurity, and I think that's the plus. But the negative side is this stuff is just getting into everything as fast as possible, and no one completely understands the bounds of it. And right now, the questions from cyber are pretty simple. Is our data staying where we are with AI, or is it out into some third-party AI service? That's easy, but it gets more difficult as even those technologies themselves are reaching out and doing stuff. So I'm both excited and, you know, very concerned about that. And yeah.
Rob?
What am I most excited about? I tend not to get super excited about much anymore these days. And I think it's because it's not really technology I'm getting excited about. I mean, AI has been around for a long time. It's just now we get the compute power that makes it more reachable for folks. But I think what's exciting is the recognition now, I think, that maybe technology isn't going to save us all. Maybe it might kill us before it saves us, I don't know. But some recognition now that cybersecurity is actually a human discipline. And I think weirdly, the artificial intelligence boom is pushing us to get the humanity back into information security and cybersecurity.
I'm excited to know what Winn's finding exciting these days.
Do I have to answer that question?
You
Can I-
don't.
Okay.
What question do you want?
All right. Well, no, the panel came in as the future of cybersecurity, and I didn't really know that until last night. And so I put my brain to thinking. And the future of cybersecurity, the future is already here. The future has been here, and we keep missing it. And we've been missing it, I'm going to argue, since the early 90s. We knew shit was going to happen, and we chose to ignore it. And every step and every technology that sounds cool, there's people say, well, yeah, but what about? Oh, we'll fix it later. We'll fix it later. But we're already in the future, and the damage has been consistent since I've been playing this game now some 40 years. So now when we add in AI, we're having the same bullshit talks about, is it good, is it bad, should I use it, should I not use it? Big question in the mid-90s was, should I even connect to the internet? They missed some of the future, and every step of technology is another bait. And to your point of human, I'm going to use 2007 as the date because it's convenient. When things, in my opinion, really change is when suddenly we had these little tiny devices that used to be room size, and that was a future that we started living without calculating the risks, the upsides, the downsides. So whatever new tech comes along, we're already in the future, and we have to start thinking and behaving like it.
Thank you. So, you are all done. You can take a bow and exit stage if you like. Mic drop. So, what do you think the biggest challenge is for our industry that we're going to face within the next 5 years?
I don't think it's going to change at all. It's the same problem we've always had, which is not enough attention and not enough resources devoted to actually curing some of the issues that we know about. And we're still perpetually very reactive in the industry. So I think we need, until we can change that paradigm a little bit and get in front of it, we're going to be perpetually kind of chasing things instead of leading things. So.
I think, one of the lessons, and I'll go back to one my grandfather taught me when I was like this tall. Yes, I'm now this tall, so before you got there. Is that, when you find yourself in a hole, the first step is to stop digging. And I think we haven't learned that as an industry yet. We're building, new problems on top of old ones without sorting out some of the old stuff yet. What is it now? This will be 30 years next year in this, and I'm still talking about the same stuff I talked about 29 years ago. I'm just now doing it with AI instead, but nothing's really changed.
There's two things that come to mind. Number one, who owns your infrastructure? Because I know that I said something very unpopular back in 1991 about an electronic Pearl Harbor, and I still hear from people, it never really happened. So I'm going to repeat. Who owns your infrastructure? Who owns the critical infrastructures? And have we been seeing tests of the amount of penetration and ownership that has occurred by potential adversaries? So I'm not going to worry about the old shit. I'm going to worry about the same stuff, because at one point I'm still convinced that a cyber foot is going to drop, and we've seen enough of that already. The second problem is, and I'm going to say HR, but I'm saying that very loosely because they're easy to pick on. Cyber, human element. Cool. I get it. We can perhaps all deal with that. But some of the things that are necessary from a security standpoint in order to make the cyber-human interaction more secure than it is, is going to violate every HR policy known to man because we're looking for certain types of behaviors to conform to our security protocols that are not going to meet the needs of a highly PC style enterprise. And we're going to have to get those conversations going a lot more honestly than they're being done now.
I agree. I think we're going to switch things up a little bit. Let's talk about what is the dumbest thing that you think people do in cybersecurity that you wish they would stop?
This will not be taken kindly by probably even this audience, but I think we need to stop blaming users for cybersecurity problems. I see it all the time, and it doesn't, any other, with the exception of maybe safety, you don't ever usually hear all this pressure on an end user to do something. You don't go over there and expect an end user to understand everything there is about accounting for a company, right? And yet we pretty much do that. Watch what you're clicking on. Make sure you don't do that. We're going to punish you by giving you more training because you clicked on some test or you read something wrong. To me, those are all deficiencies in our field, not the users. And I think we need to work through our own technology and our approach to that rather than saying just more training is going to fix cybersecurity. I think we're in the wrong path.
I think you took mine. So I think number 2 would be, we'll call it security management by folklore and fairy tale. And its connection with the its brother, which is the religious adherence to framework, which I think is the 2 dumbest things we do. I think frameworks, they're useful, I suppose, as a guidelines, but when you adhere to them as this mystical best practice that's better for everybody, I think you get yourself into trouble. And the other one is, how much do we do because we know it's true, but there's no data to support it? Because all of those things, whether it be, we all knew it was best to rotate passwords every, 60 days and until NIST did the research. We all knew that, it was best to do, gotcha-based and punitive-based phishing simulations until somebody did the research. Maybe we need to start doing our research and looking at the data before we say what's best.
Before you go on, I got to get my ego shot in, which is 25 years ago, I actually had a discussion with NIST where I said rotating passwords was stupid. I said, another lifetime ago was a hacker, and I'm much more likely to get your passwords when you're running around having staff change 1 million of them. And at some of the government agencies we work for, I went up against it and said, we're going to set, passwords and forget them for service accounts and all that stuff, where other agencies had teams of people every 30 and 60 days changing service accounts passwords. I said, pick the maximum 170 character thing. It's just, I'm rejoicing that after a decade or so, NIST finally came around, and hopefully they'll continue. Sorry.
No.
You're right.
No. Dumbest thing. I hear it at every conference. We have a new version. It's the next generation. It's a seamless upgrade, and it will solve all of your problems.
That is
Every conference.
Can you stop it with all the mic drops?
Yeah, I know. Like, when it gets to win, it's like, okay, conversation over. Every time. Your snappy one-liners are definitely mic drop moments. So, what should we, thinking forward, what should we be doing differently?
We need to look at humans and our cyber systems and see how they integrate with each other in the time domain and the security domain because they're both systems. The universe is made of systems. We are a biological carbon-based system. Everything else is a silicon system. How do they tie together? How do we choose to tie them together? Because that's something that we have never examined in the 50 years, 60 years of computing. It's always been, yeah, well, let's give it a try, let's give it a try. And that's great for a DIY and a hacker maker space, but for deployment, we see what's going on. And until we look at the synergetic results of a human system and a cyber system together and view that as a systemic whole, I'm not trying to go all quantum on you here, but look at that as a systemic whole, I don't think we're going to find many answers.
Yeah, I think it is a systems thing. And even within companies and organizations, I think it comes down to, I would love to see the term the business banished. You know, as if it's some kind of mystical, magical third-party entity, as opposed to the one that's on the top of your pay stub. You know, as a mining CISO, you know, I was reminded very early when I started that I'm a miner, and I have to go to mine sites and understand mining. I still talk to CISOs in energy who have never been to a power generation station. You know, CISOs in mining that don't even own a pair of steel-toed boots. You know, CISOs in cruise lines that have never been on a cruise ship. It's ridiculous that people see themselves or the security team as some kind of overlay, as opposed to my job is to help my company turn big rocks into little rocks. And how do I help do that most efficiently and not restrict their ability to do it, but enable that ability? But I have to understand it. I have to be able to, you know, understand that business intimately, and we don't do that often enough.
I think that was excellent point. What I'm going to say is that I actually think we, as an entire industry, really need to go back to thinking about consequences versus risk. Even though everybody talks about risk all day, the problem with that is we're very, very bad at determining risk. Humans are just not very good at determining that. It's very easy for us to understand consequence, which follows up on your point, which is if you don't understand the business and you don't understand the business that you're working in, you're not understanding the things that you do, then you're going to have trouble making decisions about what things are really worth spending your effort and time on, especially when it comes to protections. And I have seen all too often lots and lots of resources and time spent on stuff that, frankly, if the whole thing was hacked into and destroyed, would have very little deleterious effect. Meanwhile, there's something else out there that has zero protections because it's harder and would have a very real impact on it. So I just think understanding what the actual consequences of different systems and components are would help us out quite a bit.
I think building on that, I think, you know, risk, even you look at it, is two things, right? It's likelihood times impact. And we spend all kinds of money and have huge control frameworks for the likelihood, half of that, when often we can control the impact for critical things for way less money.
I agree.
Right?
And the likelihood part is a challenge because when you get farther away from traditional IT and into OT, if you have an adversary who wants to go after bad enough, as I say, the likelihood becomes 1. They're going to do it if they want to do it bad enough. So the idea of using what were traditionally, you know, stats to say that, you know, that you could do in other things such as safety or failure is impractical when it comes to things like that.
I'm going to take a slightly different view for a moment in that, again, looking at systems, graceful degradation. We know shit's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Is your network, your cybers, are they architected with the anticipation that there is 100% certainty something's going to fuck up? But what are you going to do about it? You can't shut everything down, but can you architect it such that you're going down to minimal systems. Some people are doing it, some people are not doing it. And again, from a systems standpoint, look at the biology, look at us. When we get really sick, the flu, we don't die, we go into a different mode, and we go to bed, and we have minimal systems required to keep us alive going, and then we will get better. Again, from a systems viewpoint, we have to be able to do some sort of functional degradation as a mitigation, because mitigation is really, at the end of the day, all we have, because security isn't.
I think it's time to open up the questions for the audience. What was that? I didn't hear that.
Any questions?
Any questions from the audience before I ask more?
Any other questions from the audience?
Anyone, please,
Anyone at all.
else ask
Anyone
a question.
at all?
Yeah, I don't need it. Gents, you paint a pretty bleak picture. You paint a picture of something that hasn't changed in 25 years, that the only way to really sort of make differences or dents in this is by sort of ripping up some of the foundations that have been laid and changing things. My question is this. We all have vendor pain. We all have all of these things that just frankly suck. There's data that we don't see. There's interactions that are terrible, both from the human and business perspective. And you know, these things are expensive, hard to implement, hard to use, you get locked in. My question to you is, what do you think the biggest impediment to doing better is? Because let's talk about the possible. Let's not talk about what sucks. How do we actually change this as a community? What do we need to build? Where do we need to focus our energies? Because we've got creative people that are coming in hungry to this industry that have more tools at their disposal than ever before in human history to create and build. I've been writing so much bullshit with AI coding, but it's actually effective, and we're able to refine it into useful things. So there's nothing there. My question is, where do you think the art of the possible is? What's the upside, and where should we be putting our efforts?
I think, I'll go first this time. I think the art of the possible lies in resilience. The art of the possible, the space for creativity is how do we continue, how do we control the controllable? What the bad guy does, I can't control that. I wish I could. He doesn't send me his project plans. Can't do it. Systems are going to fail. Things aren't going to get patched. Users are going to give away their passwords. Like, all of that is going to happen, but that's all the uncontrollable stuff. And we can get ourselves stressed out and bend around the axle. We're trying to control. Uncontrollable make humans not human anymore. But what we can do, though, is embrace resilience. How do we continue going? I keep saying the most effective security control I ever built was a pile of rocks. It was at a mining company with autonomous haul trucks, and we were worried about what happens if the robots stopped and we didn't produce ore anymore. And we were trying to get our heads around solving all the things we couldn't and driving us all crazy. And it just came down to, what if we just build a stockpile of rock? Let it go down. We've got a stockpile to feed the plant while we rebuild the whole thing. It doesn't matter. Now the whole thing is within our control. We can control how fast we can rebuild. We can build the right size pile of rocks. It ended up costing literally $0, right? Versus the millions we were trying to figure out how we could do that wouldn't work. I think that's where we got to start thinking about, is not stress about what we can't control when there's so much we can. And let's wrap our heads around it and figure out what our pile of rocks is.
Excellent point. I think we have a question. Go ahead.
The mitigation, and I completely agree with that. The only difference I'm going to make is that you got a pile of rocks and you got some cybers behind the rocks doing that. One of the things that we have not thought about mitigating is the effect of technology on humans. And what has happened to society, what has happened to teenagers and the kids, how is this technology affecting us all individually and collectively? and we see some of the psycho guys, not psycho, psychiatry, you know? Well, psycho guys, fair enough. There are reports that are going on, there are studies that are occurring and all of that, and we know the damages, we know what's going on, but that is going to require a total rethink of the profit motive.
So I'm going to take a different direction this time, which is saying that I believe over time when you look, when there's technological problems, the solutions almost always ended up being a technological solution. So you can't really go back and I've seen it firsthand in industries where the first thing of getting scared of cyber was we're going back to doing everything in analog. And I'm like, well, good luck with that. You know, and I wasn't even against that. I think, you know, some safety systems and stuff, it's a good call to say simplify it very simply. But that being said, you're giving up all the other advantages, which is very, very difficult to do, and over time that almost never works out. So when it comes to that, we have a lot of bad technology in play, especially in cybersecurity, and more than even most other areas, I'd say. And one of the things that they forget about is that for the moment, in the near term anyways, there's still a lot of human labor involved in all of that. And unfortunately, most of that goes out the window. It doesn't matter how, you know, easy it is to use for the people that are using the technologies. It's pretty much, we can say that it does all of this stuff, even if you have to do backflips in order to see it.
You know, I really like that. I want to, you know, go a little bit more with what Aaron was saying, and it just occurred to me: how many companies that you know of do an information knowledge retention program before people leave the company? All right, so Aaron's the only one whose knowledge we're going to be saved, and that's sad. But from an enterprise standpoint, oh my God, Bob's not here anymore. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to have to dig deep. Well, we have the technology to extract this information. And back to HR, we have the ability to put Bob on a reasonable retainer for a couple, 3 years, so that when they call Bob, and again, this is back to resiliency of the operation of the cybers and the humans. And I think some of those are easily implementable right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So I had a follow-up question, and it's right here. Rob, something you said about the fact that ultimately you're a miner, that your job is to make big rocks small rocks. We've got to the point in modern business where the people who are in technology and cybersecurity and physical security are no longer actually intimately involved with the actual operation of their trade. And so, you know, before it was, hey, we have Joe, and Joe's really good at technology. Joe's a miner, but he can also do the tech stuff. How do we shift that paradigm back, or at least educate the C-suite and the HR people to recognize that what we really need are people who intimately understand the industries that they're trying to secure, as opposed to just finding somebody who's the best at risk assessment?
The UPS model. I mean, the UPS model, for those that don't know, was every manager, everybody else has to go in a truck. It's not up for debate. It may not be forever, it may be for a month or two, but everybody's got to know what it's like to move a bunch of boxes around, because that's the point of their company. And I'll tell you, that is a strong point of why I think we're a differentiator, and that is because when we go to any of the organizations, that's my expectation. We're on the boots with the grounds. If we're going into a plant, we're in the plant. We're not sitting there making cybersecurity decisions back in some cooled office. We understand it's there, and also the effect it has. We've seen too many of those solutions come out there where there's dramatic impact on the workers, and they're just supposed to do more and more cyber hurdles in order to get their job done. And I said, they're just going to ignore all those, because wouldn't you? You're not going to want to do an extra 100 steps especially when you don't understand it. Instead, it's got to be part of the workflow, and the only way to understand that is to get people into the environment to do it.
I think, it's intentionality. It's, I always had a rule at the mining company is every single one of my security people, from my most junior analysts that I hired last Tuesday to my senior managers and myself, goes to a mine every quarter. Spend a week. Hang out with a blaster. And, you wonder why the blaster's not worried about cybersecurity. He's worried about not turning himself into red mist, is what he's focused on. And all of a sudden now, the blast is late because he's got an MFA in to set it off, and the wind shifted. Now they can't blast. Now they can't mine for a week. You just shut them down for a week, right? And it's understanding those impacts. Or, sitting with a control system engineer who runs a KivSet smelter, which is like a frac tower for metal. It turns metal into gas, so it comes off at various levels of the filter. It'll be fine, I'm sure. But if he makes a mistake, it's a 1 kiloton size explosion, hydrogen explosion. Understanding those pressures and sitting next to him while he's doing that, or her while she's doing that, it helps, what's the phrase, focus the mind. Same as getting underground and understanding if the ventilation fails, it's going to take you an hour to get to surface with your 10-minute air cylinder. And then do the math, right? It's that kind of experience you need to get to understand, and it's got to be intentional.
How many people fly United, American, or Delta? How many of you think that they all offer incredibly great service? Bigger is better, isn't it? That's what they told us. Mergers are good. They're good for you, the customer. Is that the same argument? Can't we apply it to what we're doing in cybers? We keep plugging more and more shit together, making it bigger and more complex and ultimately less efficient. Now, I'm not an operations guy. I'm just throwing this out for you to think about. Is bigger really better?
I don't think so. I've never thought so. In fact, on a very obvious version of that, where I come from, especially in their nuclear, they kept making bigger and bigger nuclear power plants to the point that they had these things, AP1000s. It was the biggest disaster in terms of a project probably on the planet. It went somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 times over budget. It was already expensive when they started that. It's miraculous that it actually ever got finished. The whole time, I was going back and advocating small modular reactors, which nobody knew about. Now it's all over the news, but back then, nobody ever even had heard of one.
And you can have a critical failure on one and not
Yeah,
affect the whole
and
grid.
I hate to tell you, a critical failure on that basically doesn't amount to anything. The amount of fuel in a small modular reactor is below the threshold a nuclear fuel manufacturer can lose every year during manufacturing. So that's how small it is. It's less efficient because it's smaller, but it's way cheaper, easier, and faster to build them.
I'm going to go back to my ancient career of being an audio recording engineer on TV, live stuff. And shit always went wrong. I mean, that you were guaranteed something was going to go wrong. But to your model there of lots of separate little things contributing to the grid, that effectively we have 40 microphones for the band and whatever. If one of them goes dead, what happens? I can't hear you talk for 10 seconds until a roadie goes out there and jams a new mic in your face.
Or you use the mic next to you, right?
We're going to use the next generation of that cable, yes. So we are doing the exact opposite of how systems survive in nature.
I'll just add one thing. If you do look at that in terms of cybersecurity solutions right now, that's what you see everything is. They want each vendor to be the solution to all of your cybersecurity problems. And my personal take on that is when you're doing something like that, you're going to be very poor at all the little things. So while you might have one big solution, it'll look very attractive, the downside is each individual thing will be much worse than it would be if you had a solution that kind of specialized in it.
Especially with that solution.
Why do people expect one thing to solve everything?
Louder so everybody.
Sales.
So Aaron asked why do you expect one thing to solve anything? Because we're humans and we're lazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's why we expect, well, I'll just do Microsoft everything and the security stuff, comes from, my license and it's easy and it's one thing. Microsoft has mastered that bundle story. And so now all of a sudden we're trusting the people who are making all the security flaws to fix them only if I pay extra to let me see them. And that's suddenly become okay. But I think that was sarcasm for the ones in the back.
Buy a sign, dude.
But I think it's because we're lazy. Ultimately, we want somebody to come in and say, Aaron, I got you. Just give me one little PO, and I'm gonna solve all your problems, and you can go back to playing solitaire.
And this is where I get really started. Thank you for bringing this up. Is from the cyber level, we can all sort of agree. I mean, it's not terribly difficult. But what about the defense of the cognitive system when it is under attack? How do you recover? Why are people doing it? And the reason, and why are they falling into the conspiracy traps, all the stuff that's going on? Why? Because it's a one-stop shop answer, and it's easy, and it gives them the answer they want. Has nothing to do with the truth.
So we have a couple minutes left, and I like to end things always on a positive note.
Then I'm out of here.
It was a nice talk.
I've been doing this too long.
So what's one thing about our industry that you hope never changes?
Oh, that's easy. It's this. It's community. It's the ability for us to come together and be honest and argue and debate and share and ultimately support each other. This can be super lonely sometimes. And the ability to come together with friends and peers who understand and some good red wine or scotch is, it can literally be a lifesaver for some. So it's great.
Yes, it's the community.
I'm definitely backing the community. The one thing that I think is kind of unique in only a few areas, and cybersecurity is one of them, is where normally everybody might be competitors, and when I want to share anything, you have the opportunity in cybersecurity to say, hey, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all in it together. The fact of the matter is that, watching you get hacked, it doesn't really benefit me that much because I'll be the next one that gets hacked.
The other thing that this community has is 3 words that business leaders, management, executives, C-suite people have never learned. And what are those 3 words? I don't know. We are really comfortable with not knowing because I'm going to call Brian, I'm going to call Aaron, I'm going to call Rich. The answers are out there, but people are scared to say they don't know, and our community, we relish in it.
That was a
That was a
drop.
drop.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Yay for not knowing things. So, any final words before they kick us off stage?
I think final word, how about a round of applause for our moderator, her first ever panel moderation?
Excellent job.
Fantastic job.
Great. All right, thanks guys.
C'est fini.
C'est finito.
Thank you.